It's time for Reason.
They're delusional. The blinders are on. I don't know if it's the higher education. I don't know whether it's the Common Core education. I don't know whether it's just been brainwashing for years and years and years. But when you lay out blatant facts to them, they refuse to listen. They refuse to acknowledge. There's so much opportunity to where if we just at least had a discussion and they opened their ears for a slight minute, then maybe they'd have a different perspective.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh yeah, waking up, starting off a brand new day. Starting off a brand new week. Welcome into the Voice of Reason. It just gets better and better every single day. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on TV as well, KGPT TV channel 2610. Good morning. Welcome aboard. It's great to have you along today on the greatest day of the entire week. It is a Monday. Yeah, that's right. We're setting the tone not only for today, but for the entire week. You see your goals. Let's plan it out. Let's have a little fun. Do our thing. Let's make it work because that's what we do as conservatives.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started.
Like it. Welcome in 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, the Facebook Live feed is up and rolling as well, like usual. Facebook.com/1480KQAM, radio, TV, online media, TuneIn app if you want to stream it that way as well. You really have no excuse to not find us here on the program. Welcome into it. We'd love to have you along. I hope you had a great weekend. It was really one of the more relaxing weekends that I've had in a really long time, which was nice. At the same time, the baby had a bit of a cold. The wife was sick with a cold. Everybody was kind of I've been trying to not get the cold, which is, why whiskey is a really good thing. But I feel fine, at least this morning. A little bit of the allergy stuff with the rain and the cooling down, changing the weather a little bit. Does that affect on some people, but the wife was kind of sick. The baby was kind of sick. So it was kind of one of those just like kick back, relax, and enjoy weekends, which was nice. And when I get the chance to do that, which I don't get to do that very often because we're always so busy, I felt bad. I was going to mow the lawn over the weekend, and then it started raining, and I was like, Saturday, I always come in Saturday morning here to the station and kind of do a few hours of stuff here and help out with some of the shows that are going on there. And then I got home middle of the day, and I was like, I'm already in my jammas, and I really don't want to. It's already getting hot. It's already about 90 degrees. I'm not going to mow the lawn. I'll do it first thing Sunday morning. Why not? To be able to do it when it's nice and cool first thing in the morning. That was the ideal situation. Wake up Sunday morning, what to do? It's raining all day. So the lawn didn't get mowed. Gonna have to do that probably, I don't know, today or tomorrow after work and in the afternoon, which isn't bad, but it's getting a little high and all the neighbors look at you and be like, ew, why didn't you mow your lawn? Because everybody else, of course, mowed their lawn Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon. And I was just like, meh, we'll do it on Sunday. And then, of course, that didn't happen. So now mine is the grisly-looking yard compared to all the other neighbors, and they probably give me a look. And I said, yeah, you know what? I don't care. Put another yard sign out there, and then you won't notice. Because I'm assuming that the majority of my neighbors don't care for the fact that I have a lot of political yard signs in the front of my yard because, well, they probably don't agree with me on there. I've talked to a few of the neighbors, and none of them, at least that I've talked to, I mean, we got about good 10 neighbors on our street, our tiny little street there, and we know most of them, or at least we know some of them, and the few of them that we have kind of mentioned slight politics to, they're not too keen on the conservative end of the aisle, so they probably don't like my yard in the first place. Now you put the overgrown grass on top of that, and then it just goes out of control. That's why they probably don't talk to us too terribly much. What do you do? Welcome in 316-721-8255. But while I was actually enjoying the weekend and not doing a whole lot and just kind of relaxing and just kind of, watching movies or watching shows or taking care of, I was the designated taking care of the sick wife and the sick baby, get them the soup and make sure they got their ice water and make sure they're taking their medication and get them to nap. But it's really nice because while they're taking their naps and I get to take my nap and it makes me kind of happy. But while I'm doing that, I was on, you ever have those times where you just kind of need to zone out, or sometimes you just zone out and you're on social media on your phone scrolling through, or you start watching random YouTube videos. And I was doing that on the weekend, which is really nice. But then I came across some videos of an old show that I used to really enjoy, The Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson. And which, by the way, about the only late night talk show that I actually enjoyed watching. And he's not doing it anymore because CBS really didn't like him. But he was about one of the only good late night talk show hosts that I actually enjoyed. And I heard him say something on one of the shows, and I had to record it. I had to get it in the archives because he said something that if he would have said that in today's times, if he was still a late late show host today, he would probably be kicked off the air just by making the comment that he did, which was actually criticize a Democrat. I know. He actually criticized a Democrat on a late night show. Now he criticized a Republican as well, but that was the great thing about Craig Ferguson is that he actually took shots at both sides and had a little bit of fun with it, and it was actually funny.
It's bad here in California. The studios are falling apart. The unemployment here is the worst it's been in 25 years. Here's how bad the unemployment situation is in Hollywood. Right now, people are begging to work with Christian Bale. They want to.
All right, so that was the beginning of the prelude there, and this was, I want to say, 2012, 2013. This was going right into the beginning of the Obama administration and how bad the economy was. Then he starts taking a shot at Barack Obama and the Democrats.
Anyway, it's a great day for us. It's not at all. Hey, everybody's feeling it. Obama's feeling it in Washington as well. Another one of his nominees has the tax issues, which proves one thing, that while the Democrats like raising the taxes, they hate paying them, clearly.
I've never heard Jimmy Kimmel say such a travesty of that sort. I've never heard. Now, I mean, the reason I bring this up is because we see all the news stories. I mean, the latest AP story right now is that the bull market and the stock is poised for this week to break the record as the longest in history of U.S. trading of it as a bull market, meaning the stock market going up instead of actually dropping, because you know the bullish and the bearish kind of thing. And the bull takes the market up, and it's going up and up and up, and it would be the longest running bull market in U.S. history if it goes on through Wednesday of this week. If the market doesn't drop significantly in the next 3 days through Wednesday, the bull market that began in March of 2009 will have lasted 9 years, 5 months, and 13 days. The longest in United States history. Then we talk about the unemployment rate and how the unemployment rate's extremely low. Then we see, if you want to break it up into different categories or divisions and the different groups, the African-American community that has the lowest unemployment record in the history of the United States. We have women unemployment that is extremely, extremely low. You see the youth unemployment rate. Youth unemployment hits a 50-year low. Between all these stories, under a Donald Trump administration, we're seeing happy things happen. You go back to during the Barack Obama era. Now, granted, a little bit of that may have been the whole George W. Bush time. But the fact that we actually have a vast difference between what Barack Obama's administration looked like in the economy and what Donald Trump's economy looks like under his administration, there's a big difference there. And people actually recognized it back in the day.
It's bad here in California. The studios are falling apart. The unemployment here is the worst it's been in 25 years.
Remember the days. First off, remember the days when you can actually watch a late show and not have them just trash one person over and over and over again. But imagine when they actually recognized what was flat in front of their face. Now you have people like Bill Maher that openly say, yeah, you know what, to hell with the economy, to hell with low-income individuals. I would rather see the economy tank to destroy Donald Trump as opposed to actually people doing well. You have Jimmy Kimmel and you have Stephen Colbert that do nothing than just trash Donald Trump all the time, and then they finally begin to admit, hey, things are actually doing well. People are getting back to work, and unemployment's actually kind of low. What a wild concept. But they don't like to announce that stuff. They don't like to admit that stuff because that means that Donald Trump and the Republicans have actually done something good. It's kind of interesting. It's just really fascinating to watch how so little time difference actually changes. During the Barack Obama times, everything was happy, hunky-dory to be able to poke fun at different people and different things, including your own party. Now, I don't know what Craig Ferguson actually believes in a political party. I do know that from being from Scotland and getting his naturalization here in the United States, that he's got the "Don't Tread on Me" tattoo. I think he's kind of a little more right-leaning. and which is why he was allowed to. But people actually applauded it. Did you hear people actually applaud? Oh yeah, Democrats they like to raise taxes, but they don't like to pay their own. And people cheered. People laughed at it in L.A. How crazy is that? When was the last time that you heard people on a late show actually applaud at attacking a Democrat? And this was only, 6 years ago? It's crazy. 6 years ago? Oh, how the times have changed. That was kind of my reminiscing part of the weekend where I was just watching these videos and I was like, boy, things have really changed because you do that now, and he would have gotten booed off the stage if he would have said, oh yeah, Donald Trump, actually the unemployment's really, really low and people are actually working. And boy, oh boy, during the times how this has changed 5 years ago from when Barack Obama was in office and we were talking about a 25-year employment rate hike because it's so bad right now. Look how bad it's been. Look how bad the economy is. Boy, what a big difference. Donald Trump might be doing something good. And if he would have said something like that, he would have been booed off the stage in today's times. Oh, how so few years change so much. Let's go to the phones, get your thoughts. 316-721-8255. Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name? Hello?
This is Pete.
Hey, good morning, Pete. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. I wanted to kind of touch on something somewhat related to what you're talking about. Fox News this morning was talking about all this shadow banning.
Yes.
I believe you talked about it late last week that social media does. And I'm just wondering, why hasn't a conservative created a social media platform and taken it over like they've done with talk radio?
They've tried. The problem is, and we've mentioned this a little bit, but with this, depending on how deep you want to go into this, the quote unquote big tech companies, the big companies that kind of run this, they control the domains, they control the traffic because, just for example, you go to Google search a certain social media platform, what's going to come up? Because Google, being part of the censoring, being part of the shadow banning, is only going to produce the results that it wants to produce in order to be driven to traffic of certain media sites. So Facebook and Twitter are going to be the ones that come up first because ideally they kind of partnered together. There is a social media site called Mewe, M-E-W-E, that is a more conservative-leaning social media site. Have you ever heard of it?
No, because frankly, I don't believe in social media.
Okay, so you don't have any social media, but there is a social website, which I have a Mayway account. I've never really used it, but it's not as big. There's very few people on it, and you search social media sites on Google or any different search engine, what's going to come up? It's going to come up with Pinterest. It's going to come up with Facebook. It's going to come up with Twitter. The problem with the shadow banning thing is because, I'm one of those like you to where I'm a private market type of individual. If you have a monopoly on something, if I don't like the way that you operate your business, and as a business, if you feel that you have the right to shadow ban me or block my message, even though you say you're a social media platform for everybody and what they want to say and what they're thinking, if you want to block me, then fine. I'll go to another site and support that business and support that social media. The problem is that right now we don't have much of that option because they block the traffic from actually getting to these sites. So unless you specifically know it very, very well, you're not going to find it. The search engines block it. The traffic on the internet is directed based on what these companies actually want you to go and find. So it's very, very difficult right now for any of these competitors.
All right, 2 points, Andy. One, all this shadow banning and everything, let's face it, what they're doing is they are banning intellectual thought.
Sure.
And that is the equivalent of book burning.
Right.
They are doing an electronic version of book burning, and we need to call it as that.
Well, it's true, but they don't care because they see it as silencing hate speech. I don't know if you remember, but just about a couple weeks ago, Twitter came out and said that they're changing their mission statement from saying that we need to ban hate speech or anything that may be not controversial, but that may be derogatory towards individuals to silencing people based on doing the right thing. And they've left it very vague and very open because now they've given their individuals who sit there and actually watch these trends and watch the threads and try and silence things and ban certain things and suspend certain accounts, that they've given them the prerogative to say that they have to do what is right because now they have given them the opportunity to say, I consider this hate speech, therefore I'm going to have the authority as a person working for company A or company B to censor a certain profile because I don't like what they're spreading, because that could be considered hate speech or conspiracy theories or whatever it may be, and therefore we don't think that that's acceptable here on our platform.
Well, the other point I wanted to make, because I know you're running short on time, is, it seems to me, as you study American history, that what they have going on in Silicon Valley is a monopoly.
Sure.
And as I recall, one that President Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt, amongst others, who broke up these monopolies, who went after these monopolies and broke them up. I mean, look what they did to Rockefeller and Standard Oil.
Well, because one of the actual duties of the federal government is not supposed to be, how big we can make the Environmental Protection Agency, but it's supposed to be foreign policy, it's supposed to be national defense, and it's supposed to be slight regulation on interstate commerce to ensure that there are no monopolies. That is one of the few duties of the actual federal government, and what they're supposed to be doing is making sure there are no monopolies in an industry, and right now, I think we have a monopoly.
That's exactly my point. I mean, Zuckerberg has got, with Facebook, has that whole segment locked up. Right. And there is no competition.
And when he works and partners with Google and he works and partners with Twitter, then, they all have their quote-unquote separate companies, but as they're working together, then they say, you know what, we'll make the deal. And as people are searching social media, Google, you're going to direct the traffic towards Facebook and Twitter because, well, those are going to be the biggest platforms there. To hell with Mayway and all these other, there's tons of other different social media platforms, but it's very difficult to actually find them, and they all just kind of work together. We've talked about Google, and Google's been doing this for a really long time. You pay for an advertisement with Google to where when people search certain keywords or phrases, then your business pops up. And when you look at maybe different media sources or websites, liberal websites and liberal information comes up on the top of the bar. You got to go 3 pages deep to find any conservative alternatives for that information, even though it may be paid for, because they get paid based on number of hits that you get on the web search from Google and from the company. And it's funny how it all works towards the left side of the aisle.
Amen, brother. But it goes to the other point. For example, I won't use an Android phone. Any phone with an Android operating system, I won't use it because I won't support Google.
Well, that's an interesting point because when it comes to the iPhone as well, I'm really excited to get rid of my iPhone at some point because I'm not a big fan of that. It is kind of the big. I don't know, a little more on the privacy side, but I don't know. I don't know what the alternative is. Pete, I'm really late on a break. Appreciate the call, my friend. We got to take one, but I don't know. I don't know what to do other than us be aware of the situation. I don't know what we can do with big tech. We need to get the government out of it. And that's how they've been able to do this, is the government's look the other way while this is happening, because it is the federal government's duty to break up monopolies, to create more competition in a market. Are they doing that right now? No, because many of them are working in order to allow it to happen. The big tech companies, Facebook, Twitter, Google, working with the government to allow these things to continue while they look the other way and say, we're going to put you under the panel and do an investigation on you because of hate speech. Yet have we heard any response from that? Not really. 25 minutes past the hour. It is a Monday morning. We got a lot to get to today. Stay tuned. This is The Voice of Reason.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Went a little long in that last segment. That's all right. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. 29 minutes past the hour. Bottom of the hour news coming up in just a second. When we come back, something else I found over the weekend that I thought was quite intriguing. It caused a lot of discussion on social media. I thought it was noteworthy on the air. Get your thoughts on this, and especially for the agricultural community. What are we going to do with food and how we're going to be able to sustain ourselves because the population's growing, how we can sustain people feeding each other with the agriculture. We'll talk about that when we come back, and one of the new ideas that's actually becoming more mainstream. When we come back, this is The Voice of Reason.
patriotism is alive and well.
We were so excited when Donald Trump got elected that we weren't going to be bullied any longer. We weren't going to have people push us around. We're not going to apologize for who we are, and we're not going to let people walk all over us. We're not going to tolerate it because we're not the weak, spineless country that we used to be.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason. Happy Monday morning. Can you believe it? A brand new week, a brand new day. They always say that you get to start over every single day. You get to erase whatever yesterday was. You get to move forward. Today is a brand new day. And I love a brand new week. It's kind of a fresh start. Last week was rough with work. Let's start off new again today. Welcome in 316-721-8255. 36 minutes past the hour. It's an honor to have you along. So, have you ever been as a kid, if you remember maybe when you were 10, 12, maybe even 8 years old, lower, whatever, you went and maybe the family went to Las Vegas for a vacation. Now, we did this one time, and we took a family vacation. Everybody went. My grandparents went. My aunts and uncles went, and we went for a weekend to go to Las Vegas. And I want to say like 15 years old. It was the worst vacation of my entire life. Why? Because you're not old enough to do anything. During the day, they've tried to make it more family friendly, and they have the different shows that you can walk by and see. If you remember, like Treasure Island, they have the big show out in front of the casino with the guys doing the reenactments on the ship and doing the battle or whatever, people shooting out of cannons. I mean, that was kind of entertaining and fun. But outside of that, you walk into the casino. No, you got to stay on the red little carpet on the part of the strip there, the walkway. You can't walk over by the casino part. Can't walk over by the slot machines. You can't do anything. You got to pay lots and lots of money to go and see all the special shows at nighttime. Oh, yeah, there's a lot of risque adult things that are happening in Las Vegas. But don't worry, it's a family-friendly place. And they turned it into a family-friendly thing. But still, as the family-friendly, you can only do so much as a child. I remember that vacation. It was the worst vacation of my entire life. Drove me nuts. Because then by 8, 9, 10 o'clock, the parents are like, all right, here's a movie in the hotel room. Go to bed. We're going to go down and play and do some gambling. I'm like, gee, thanks. So you sit there. You're looking out the window. You're looking at all the great excitement that everybody's having, all the parties going on, all the drunk fools that are walking around doing stupid things. And you're just like, not old enough to go enjoy any of this. But yet, here we are, me hanging out in a hotel room while my parents are. It was the worst vacation ever. I mean, we had fun. We got to see some shows and got to do some things. We almost went to go see the Cirque du Soleil, but, the tickets were really expensive. We ended up not doing that. But, we got to see some really cool stuff, but it was like the worst family vacation ever. Drove me nuts. Well, now they're talking about changing New Orleans and the French Quarter into becoming a new family-friendly zone. Like, Mardi Gras, where you have tons of crazy drunken fools that are walking around with beads, throwing beads at each other, showing the tops of women, and just going around having a good time. They're now wanting to change this into a family-friendly zone. The family stepped into the Whirly onto Bourbon Street, hurriedly past the burlesque joint, the other adult clubs, the leather lingerie love toys, and hunk oasis male strippers. Now they're wanting to change all of this into a family-friendly zone. Some things you just say, nah, you don't do that. I don't know how you're going to be able to change it. I mean, that's great that you want to maybe get rid of some of the risqueness, I don't know. But to have the family walking around there and be like, yeah, so here's the quarter with the non-family things, and then you have the family things walk around during the daytime. It reminds me of just like the attempt that they tried to make with Las Vegas that just, in my opinion at least, didn't really work. I don't know. If you want to go down to New Orleans as a family-friendly area, and I'm sure there's family-friendly areas, don't get me wrong, but, I mean, they literally want to change Bourbon Street onto, hey, take the 5-year-old kids down. Take the boy that's, 14, 15, 16 years old, just getting into his whole, growing up to be a guy thing, and then walk by some of those places and have him not be intrigued by what the heck's going on. You don't do that. It's not the way this actually works. 316-721-8255. So I came across something over the weekend. That was just a fun headline that I saw. I thought that was interesting. I don't know. I mean, maybe more family-friendly areas are a good thing, but at the same time, can you really get rid of the non-family-friendly areas when that was the intent and purpose of it in the first place? I just don't think it works. I think you actually corrupt the kids more than you actually help them by taking them to a family-friendly area. Hey, we're going to put on a show in front of the gentleman's club. So that way you can be intrigued by it, and then the dad can go in and, I don't know. It's and you shouldn't be doing that stuff in the first place, but come on. It's going to happen. It's obviously a very popular place. What do you do? So I came across a story over the weekend that, and this is really more for the agricultural community and for all you ag individuals and even beef industry individuals. Maybe you have a cattle ranch, maybe you have a lot of cattle that you actually do, a lot of meat, a lot of pork, a lot of chicken, whatever the case is. If you are, do you think that this would be affecting your industry with cultured meat, meaning genetically grown meat in the lab meat, synthetic meat, vitro meat? Because the story came out that now they're looking at potentially having this on the market being sold by the end of 2018, really within market price and cheaper than regular meat by the year 2020. And it's becoming a very big thing. And the reason for it is that they're trying to find ways to feed the ever-growing population when we have a finite number of or a finite amount of meat that we can actually have. Now, if you know the market, when it's being really squeezed, and individuals in the market are doing very, very well, supply and demand. If there's more of a demand for it and you have a limited number of the resource, then the price is going to go up, which means the farmers are going to be doing very well. On the flip side of that coin, are we going to be able to sustain the ever-growing population? That's always the big discussion. But now we're talking about cultured meat, also called as clean meat, synthetic meat, or vitro meat, meat grown from vitro animal cell culture instead of from slaughtered animals. It's now called cellular agriculture. And as this is becoming more of a popular thing, now you can talk about like GMOs, which I think that's a totally different discussion. You can talk about, like fast food joints to where is it really the meat? I know Taco Bell got in trouble, 10 years ago, 5-6 years ago, about their meat only being like 30% actual meat because they had like sawdust and a whole bunch of other stuff in it. Now they're one of the more healthy fast food joints in the entire country because they really turned it around. But when you talk about like what the actual meat was, you think about how much filler are they putting in there? How much processed things are they actually putting in? And as we talk about cultured meat, is this a good idea? First, I think it sounds a little weird. I think it sounds a little sick. I don't know if I would necessarily want to try something like this. But the main thing is that if you're in the agricultural community, would this affect you? Are you in favor of it? And some actually are. As Tyson Chicken Plant, the Tyson company, has actually invested millions of dollars into this lab-grown meat. This, according to FastCompany.com, in 2013, producing the first lab-grown burger cost $325,000. By 2015, though the cost had dropped to around $11 per burger. Market Post, the Dutch researcher who created the burger, thought that it might be another take or two or three decades before it was commercially viable. But the so-called clean meat believes that it may actually be in restaurants and on the market to purchase by the end of 2018, the end of this year. The Israeli-based startup Future Meats Technology aims to begin selling its first products later this year. The startup's costs are still very high, around $363 a pound, but it believes that it could be cutting the cost of the cellular agriculture to about $2.30 to $4.50 a pound by 2020. Just imagine. You go to the store and you see two different sets of hamburger patties, and you see, hey, this is from the actual cow. This is from a lab. From Future Meat Technologies. Today, the startup announced was a $2.2 million seed round of investment co-led by Tyson Ventures. Also with the Tyson plants, the venture capital arm of the meat giant Tyson Foods. Right now, growing cells as meat instead of animals is a very expensive process, according to some of the founders and scientists in this project. However, they believe that the price will be going down very shortly. Would you eat something like this? Is this concerning that we are manipulating the markets? Is it going to be good for the future of society as a whole, to the human population, because of the fact that we actually are going to have food even if we run out of animals? Or is this going to be harming the agriculture community with, like, cattle ranchers? Because now there's going to be a new type of meat that's on the market going to be sold and traded, and then that's going to cut the cost of yours. Or are you happy with this? I don't know. As an agricultural side, I would like to think, or I would think at least, that many of the individuals that's actually in agriculture would be very concerned about this because of the fact that this is adding more to the market to where it's going to be lowering the price of yours because yours is not going to be as kind of the finite market that we thought it would be. That it's not capped at the same level. Would you even eat something? I don't know that I would even eat something like this. Now, it's coming from the cell of the animal, so it's really just increasing the cells and to be able to grow it as opposed to the cell creating the animal and then slaughtering the animal. So it may be the same thing. I don't know. I just don't know if I trust something like that. I'm kind of the old school guy where you go out and you get the animal from the backyard, and because you know what's actually been ingested by it, you know what steroids that have been or not been in it, you know that it's been natural, you clean it, you slaughter it, you hunt your meat, you go and get the deer, you go and get the turkey, you go and get the fish or whatever, and then you actually eat that, and that seems a little more natural than growing it in a lab and then buying a cell-grown burger. I don't know if I could do something like that. So the question is, would you eat it? And number two, if you're part of the agricultural community, do you support something like this to be introduced into the market at a price that actually the majority of consumers can actually afford this? 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones at line at number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, what's up? It's Deacon.
Deacon, what's going on, sir? How are you?
Man, I'm just enjoying laying up here with a cast on.
There you go. Rocking it for a few days, huh?
Right? I got to tell you, I think this stuff is twisted. It's on the other side of wrong. All I got coming to mind is like Soylent Green, and once again, man is trying to pretend they're God, and I'm not gonna. Man, I would not eat this stuff if you paid me.
Yeah, I would have a very hard time. Now, I do support some types of, hey, let's modify it a little bit. I mean, I do like, to some degree, the fact that we put the steroids in the chicken to make the chicken meat a lot bigger, because the chicken breasts that you get at the store usually are a lot bigger than what the normal chicken actually looks like, and that's what we eat and we consume it, and we're fine there. The GMOs, I got no problem with GMOs because, I mean, you're really taking the same type of cell from like a seed from corn or something, and you end up being able to modify it to be able to make it a little more efficient while it's actually being grown in the sand. So I don't have a problem with a lot of that stuff, but actually
growing. I'm a non-GMO guy.
You're okay, and I know a lot of people that are non-GMOs, and I got no problem personally with GMOs, but I think this takes it to another level by saying we're just going to grab a cell and we're going to start growing meat, which is muscle. I mean, really what it comes down to is we're growing muscle in a lab, and then we're grilling it, and then we're eating it. And I don't know. I think that just takes it to another level that maybe we're just not comfortable with yet. Maybe we just think I don't know. I'm with you though. I don't think I would eat this.
I have no way I'd eat this. Now, if for a medical application where someone needs a skin graft, some kind of a transplant, and they can grow this,
sure, for
an emergency, life-saving medical thing, I'm all for it. But I'm not eating this crap. It's not. No, it's just. No.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a big difference between growing an organ, because we need an organ to be able to replace it, and it has a function, as opposed to ingesting something that's going to supposedly give you nutrients. What kind of nutrients is that putting into your body? Because we got to remember, when we eat, there's a purpose of actually eating, which is to supply your body nutrients, not just to eat just because we're hungry and we feel like eating, but there's actually a purpose for our body. And what is this going to be giving our body to process as nutrients if it's all science based and it's all grown in a lab? I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of this.
I'm not, and I know everybody's thinking of the future where they're wanting to put, colonies on Mars or whatnot, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just showing my age, and this is, to me, is twisted and wrong. And I just can't see it.
Can't see it. Well, I don't know. And speaking of Mars, by the way, I would have been the ones that applied to that one Mars mission to go that one way and try and start that civilization. I would have done that if they would have let me.
Well, you have a great day, brother. It's good seeing you on TV.
Hey, love it, Deacon. Appreciate it very much, my friend. 316-721-8255. I'm really curious from the agricultural standpoint. I mean, I thought that it would be one of those where you're like, hey, I don't want a part of this because we control the market as, cattle ranchers and as individuals actually growing real meat by the actual animal. And we're the ones that actually supply the trading trade market with our product, and now we're going to be introducing another part of this. I don't know, but at the same time, Tyson Company did invest millions of dollars into this research project to actually make it more viable. So maybe the meat companies are partnering up with this. Maybe the agricultural side's partnering up to be able to make this a little more efficient. I don't know. I don't think that would be the case, but I've been wrong before. 10 minutes to the top of the hour. We'll get your thoughts when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Just about 4 minutes to the top of the hour. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. It's great to have you along today on a Monday. Let's kick it off making a great, excellent day. Type of Monday, 316-721-8255. Yeah, I just can't get my head around the fact that my meat would be grown in a lab. Now, this would go along with the whole idea with like tofu. And I know a lot of people eat tofu. And I know tofu is like a natural thing, but still tofu has feelings as well. And if you're eating the whole tofu thing because you don't want to hurt the animal, then, you know, you need to, like, actually take care of the emotional distress of tofu. You know, they actually have, for whatever reason, and again, it's probably just ridiculous government grant spending money where they just were like, oh, let's see what we can spend money on. They actually did a study a few years back of a head of lettuce, and they actually saw the electrodes act up when you tore the head of lettuce away from the roots in the ground, meaning that it actually recognized the fact that it was being torn away from its life support, meaning that lettuce has feelings as well. And therefore, if you just are upset because you don't want to hear the cow crying as it's being slaughtered sort of thing because the animal really means something, then you probably need to not distress the tofu or the heads of lettuce as well. I'm just throwing that out there. If you're one of those that's just like, oh, I can't eat animals, that's really bad because it's really horrible what we do to animals because we're destroying their lives and killing them and they're suffering, then, you know, tofu and lettuce have feelings as well. Don't hurt them. And, oh, by the way, if you are just one of those vegan, vegetarian, whatever, because you don't want to hurt the animal, then, you know what? It's actually better to eat the animal that's eating the plant because it's killing the plant, right? So I'm saving your precious plants by eating the animal that would eat that plant. I'm just saying. 316-721-8255. When we come back, top of the hour news. When we come back, we actually have some local politics to get to. I just thought it was kind of interesting this hour to wake up the right way. But we do have some news when it comes to some of the campaign trails. Unemployment in Kansas. The good news is that we're still hanging around 3%. That's a really good unemployment rate because we do have more jobs than we do people in the state of Kansas, even though the economy hasn't necessarily grown as much as we'd like it to grow. We do have a stagnant unemployment level. It's low, but now the media is criticizing the fact that it's a stagnant unemployment level. Even though it may be low, they're criticizing that it's stagnant. Plus, we did see an editorial piece, an opinion piece out of the Wichita Eagle about how it's time for Wichita to raise city taxes. Yes, someone said, please raise my taxes on me. We'll get your thoughts on that when we come back as well. This is your show. It is a Monday morning. Let's have a little fun this morning. What do you say? It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. Hour number 2 of The Voice of Reason coming up in just a minute. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
They're delusional. The blinders are on. I don't know if it's the higher education. I don't know whether it's the Common Core education. I don't know whether it's just been brainwashing for years and years and years. But when you lay out blatant facts to them, they refuse to listen. They refuse to acknowledge. There's so much opportunity to where if we just at least had a discussion and they opened their ears for a slight minute, then maybe they'd have a different perspective.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into The Voice of Reason, hour number 2 of The Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas. on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on TV as well, KGPT TV, channel 2610. Good morning, welcome aboard. It's great to have you along on the greatest day of the entire week. Yes, it is Monday, and that's what we're celebrating today, setting the tone for not only one day, but for the entire week, having more fun than what we should be, and, oh, by the way, advancing conservative principles all day long. That's right.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started.
316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, it is open line to you for this hour. We got a lot to get to. We had a little fun in the last hour. I'm still getting messages of people on social media saying, not going to eat the lab-grown hamburger. Sorry, not going to happen. It may be coming from the cells. It may be coming from the, but it's a Petri dish. It's a Petri dish burger. And if you're eating it, do you really know what's in there? Just not, no. Had a few more people just say, yeah, no, not going to happen. Not going to happen. Maybe you would. And maybe if you're in the, if you're a cattle farmer and you're raising cattle for meat, do you want lab-grown meat to be introduced into the market to compete with you on what's being traded internationally, what's in the grocery store? And do you want them side by side? Here's the lab-grown burger, and then here's the cow burger. I just don't know how many people would actually be okay with that. 316-721-8255. The big news, of course, of the day is, according to the AP, the bull market in stocks, as long as it doesn't drop significantly from today to Wednesday, will be the longest in U.S. history with a bull-style market, meaning that the stock market's going up and up and up and up and up, and it's growing and it's growing. And unless we see a crazy downfall and it starts dipping, by Wednesday, we'll have broken the record for the longest bullish stock market in U.S. history. I think that goes to show something. I think that goes to show that we're doing well, that we saw a few dips. We were almost being able to see a downturn, and then what happened? Oh, we cut taxes. Everybody reinvested in their business. Things are going up, and it's a wonderful day in paradise. Then we see, according to CBS News, youth unemployment hits a 50-year low. Now, they say there's a catch to it as well. We can talk about the catch, but really, it's a 50-year low. More young Americans, defined by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and people between the ages of 16 to 24, are working this summer, pushing unemployment rates to the group to a 52-year low. They say there's a catch. The labor force participation rate for the young Americans remained below its 1989 peak, but we're still at a 50-year low, meaning that percentage-wise of the number of young adults between the age 16 to 24, people are working. During the summertime, they're going to work, saving up some money, getting ready to go to college, doing whatever they do. They're working. A 50-year low. We have more jobs than we do workers right now, nationwide, as an average. Now, in the state of Kansas, we're still floating around a 3.4% unemployment rate. That's as of March of this year. And according to the Topeka Capital Journal, that's still, as of August, a 3.4% unemployment rate. Now, 3.4 is really not that bad. You have 3% that are unemployed. That means that there's maybe some disability thrown in there, people that are transitioning between jobs, people that just didn't report, whatever the case is. But a 3.4% unemployment is not bad. We're still growing jobs. We're one of the very few states where we have negative amount of people that are moving here for careers, meaning that more people are actually leaving than they are coming in here, which is a problem. We need people to come to the state of Kansas to actually, we need them to actually grow up by coming here, wanting to invest, wanting to start a career, wanting to start a business. That's what we need in Kansas. It's not happening right now. I mean, it is to a degree, but it's not at the level that we need it to. As we talked about the last couple of years, we were one of 3 states in the nation that actually had negative GDP growth. That's a problem. Now, what do we do about that? Is it because of the evil brownback policies? No. It would actually be the opposite of that. It would actually be the opposite of wanting to repeal the brownback policies, wanting to spend more money, wanting to raise more taxes, and wanting to punish the private sector. That would be why we would have a negative GDP growth. Just saying. But the Topeka Capital Journal unemployment rate for July held steady at 3.4% for the 6th consecutive month, officials say. Jobless percentages haven't moved since February, when the rate stepped down to 3.4% from 3.5%. The Kansas Labor Department and the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics indicated the number of private sector jobs in the state improved by 1,400 in July. In the past, 20,900 jobs have been created in the private sector. Lana Gordon, we've had her on the show before, Secretary of Labor Department. Quote, Kansas posted its 14th consecutive month of job growth in July, a trend that started in June of last year. Now, wait a second. In June of last year, when did the retroactive tax hikes take place? In July. When did we start seeing a surplus in tax revenue in the state of Kansas? In November of 2016. We started seeing October, November, we started seeing the revenue increase above projections on a monthly basis, money coming in. Then come July of 2017, we saw the retroactive tax increases take place. Then they increased the amount of tax rates. They increased the amount of tax money going in. They didn't change the formula when we predicted and guess how much revenue is going to be coming in each month. And then they continue to say, oh, look, we're higher than projections. We were higher than projections before we raised the tax revenue increase, and we still had the same formula, meaning that the economy was coming back before we started raising taxes. And in order for you to say that the economy is still coming back, then you had to raise the rate while we kept the same formula. It's funny how that works, isn't it? Kind of tricky. So when it comes to unemployment started of June of last year, and it's continued on. Now, you could say, well, Andy, that just shows that the tax increases actually help businesses continue because it didn't really affect them one way or another. Wrong. We were able to offset it, thank God, under the Trump tax cuts. As the national economy started doing very well, as the national economy began to actually get better, it offset the local side. You have to have that happy balance between the two. I know it's really difficult for some to process this on the progressive side of the aisle, but you have to have the happy balance. And just imagine what we could do if we had low taxes at the federal level, and then we ended up having low taxes at the state level. And then you could actually have businesses really be able to grow, not have to worry about federal regulation, not have to worry about the red tape, not have to worry about crazy tax rates at either level, and then you can see the economy really take. Look, we have one of the best opportunities here in Kansas. We have aviation, we have agriculture, we have wind and solar panel manufacturing, we have natural gas, we have oil, we have some incredible industries in Kansas. And we're starting to see more. Governor Brownback, before he left, if you remember, started bringing dairy farmers to the area. So that way we can have the dairy industry on top of the other agriculture that we already have with chicken, with beef, with corn, with Milo, with everything else that we do. We have incredible opportunity. All we have to do is allow it to actually flourish, is allow it to actually grow. Are we doing that right now? I don't think we are. And that's what this election really came down to in the primary, and what I think is going to happen in the general election as well for Kansas, is that right now we're on the brink of it. We're on the teetering point of saying, it's right there. It's right out of our reach, and we just can't grasp it. The opportunity for Kansas to actually explode, for people to move here in groves, for taxes to be insanely low, for the businesses to expand. When was the last time you heard about a business, a retail store, a restaurant in the area explode and say, you know what, I'm opening up 3 new restaurants in the area. I'm expanding. I'm growing. Right now, we're still at that point of like, I'm not quite sure if I want to do that yet. Not quite sure. As we talked about last week, 99% of businesses and jobs in the nation are small businesses. Small business, not corporations, not the evil corporation. You hear about the evil corporate leaders enslaving their workers, but it's actually the mom and pop shops. It's actually small businesses that are actually creating 99% of jobs in the nation. When are we going to start being favorable to them? Officials tracking the labor market in Kansas indicated employment increases during July were documented in mining, manufacturing, and leisure and hospitality sectors. Deadlines were measured at the information, the education, and health services sections from the economy in July. Unemployment in the state reached 1.42 million people, or 2,162 more than July of 2017. The number of jobless Kansans increased by 2 people in July, but declined 3,332. Now, we can look at the numbers and how they actually break those down and how we actually apply those, and whether it's people that stopped applying for unemployment, people that just didn't report, people that are actually off it and it actually worked. You can debate all those different numbers, but the fact is We're seeing job growth, but yet unemployment is stagnant. We're seeing job growth. We have more jobs than we do workers. That says something. That says something, and we need to be very proud of that to some degree. But for the media to begin criticizing the unemployment rate, like they always like to do, oh, look at that, it's stagnant. It's under Republican control. If Democrats were in charge, boy, I tell you what, that unemployment would be really high, and it would be fantastic and muy caliente. It would be just great. We'd be able to have social programs. We'd be able to start getting people on these different Social Security and all these different benefits, and we could raise taxes, and then we could punish the rich. It would be a beautiful scenario. Because that's really what they would like to see. They'd love to be able to cut out the oil and natural gas industry. We don't need something like that. Cut out the manufacturing. We don't need that. That hurts the environment. Cut out the mining, especially they hate the mining. We need to get rid of that part. Then we could just have these people on social programs. But 3.4% has been that way for a year now. Come on, aren't you guys going to do anything different? The stagnant economy is the fault of the Republicans, remember? That's what they like to say. 18 minutes past the hour, 316-721-8255. What are the ideas from the governor's candidates, both sides of the aisle, the independent, everybody across the board? What does it come down to? What do we think needs to happen? We'll see what their thoughts are, plus what we need to do to be able to get our economy back on track in a good way. We're seeing potential. We're seeing certain factors of it actually work. Now we need to fill in the rest of the gaps so that way we can be full steam ahead. We have that opportunity. We need to show up to the voting booth and we need to take that leap. But we need to make sure that it's a good environment for us to take that leap if we want to be a business owner, if we want to increase our business, if we actually want to do something productive with our business. Yeah, 316-721-8255. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
24 minutes past the hour. Welcome into The Voice of Reason. Happy Monday morning to you. It's great to have you along today, whether you're heading to work, whether you're ending your day, whether you're just waking up, sipping on your coffee. Welcome in. Good morning. Pleasure. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. By the way, I don't know if you've been hearing the promos here on KQAM, but we do have our our high school KQAM KGSO football guide. This is an ongoing yearly tradition that we have to where you can go, you can get your football guide, you can see all the schedules of every team you may be following, City League or anywhere within the South Central Kansas area. Keep listening for KQAM for all the locations, as we have plenty of them all around the entire South Central Kansas area. So it is really exciting. We always love having that football guide out. We are getting ready. Can you believe it? We are a week away from high school football starting here in the area. Craziness. Starting on Friday the 31st, or actually Thursday the 30th, I believe we have our first Thursday night football game right here on KQAM. Doug Downs going to be the voice of that. We have Bishop Carroll football. We're wrapping up the Wingnuts baseball season, and a lot of big news coming out from all over the area. So stay tuned in. High school football starting very soon. I will be doing, as usual, the statewide scoreboard show on Fridays at 10 p.m., recapping high school football from across the entire state of Kansas. That's going to start on Friday the 31st. More information to come for that as we get a little bit closer. So unemployment being stagnant in the state of Kansas, job growth slightly peaking up, businesses working to invest in Kansas, people not quite migrating to Kansas yet to be able to come here for work, for opportunity, for job growth, but we have opportunity to make it happen. Now, according to the governor's candidates, there are a few different ideas on how to actually make this. Secretary of State Chris Kobach comes out and says, yeah, we got to cut taxes. We have to release our stranglehold on the private sector. Great point. We do. I mean, and that's really all we can do, can't we? I mean, there's other opportunities where we can create this department or that department, this agency, that agency, this program, that program. We've talked with Alana Gordon from the Department of Labor, and we've talked with different individuals from the statewide level with trying to create these initiatives, trying to work with businesses and universities, trying to set certain curriculums, trying to set different programs to be able to get kids or individuals that are going through college to be able to have a step up into the workforce once they're done. Those are all great, but really the main thing that you can do, The best thing you can do, I mean, all those tell us that the solution comes from the government to some degree, which maybe we can do that. But the best way to actually get government out of the way is to get government out of the way, cut taxes, cut regulation, and then say, you know what, economy, grow, flourish, my little child. It's like the parent that just doesn't know how to let go. You know, the kid's growing up, they're going off to college, they're all excited, they want to rebel a little bit, they want to get away from their parents, they want to go start their own life. And the parents are like, ugh, we want you to go to the university right close to us so you can come home every weekend. You can go to the university just around the corner so we can come see you anytime, or we can keep an eye on what you're doing. It's the helicopter parent. I was one of those. I was the rebel. I grew up, I graduated high school in Colorado. My parents were in Colorado, and I said, yeah, I'm going to go back to Ohio. I'm going to get, and nothing against my parents. I mean, I'm just like, it's time for me to start my thing. I want to get as far away as I possibly can. Now, I still had family, obviously, in the Ohio area. So if emergencies happen, then I could do that. But it wasn't extremely close family like that to where every weekend I was like, hey, why aren't you coming home? Hey, what kind of party you involved in this weekend? We need to make sure you're all right. I got this. Thanks. That's what we have to do with the economy. And Kansas, the government saying, you know, this is our baby. It's time to let go. It's time to flourish. Spread your wings, private sector. Go do your thing. All we can do is cut taxes and cut regulation and let the private sector do its own thing. That's the plan from Chris Kobach. Now we have Laura Kelly that hasn't even mentioned this, and all she's saying is, yeah, we kind of need to reinvest in education. Invest more money, more money, more money, more money. And you as the business owner, you should feel really good about raising your taxes to spend on education, because that way we're educating really good kids, so that way they can get the job when they're done graduating. That would be the plan that Laura Kelly has. If we just spend more money, raise more taxes, and invest it in education, then we hope that they come out educated, and therefore you can have an educated youth as they go into the workforce. That's her plan. Not the brightest one, but it works. Greg Orman, the independent candidate, has come out talking about an economic development plan for Kansas, targeting middle-class job growth by streamlining regulatory hurdles faced by new businesses. I mean, that's I don't know what the detail of that actually is, but I mean, that at least says, you know what, we need to streamline regulation. I'm hoping that means cut regulation. Get rid of the regulations and allowing the red tape to be gone for the business to grow like we need it to do so. He wants to focus on expanding solar and wind industries and elevating in-state processing of crops. Another decent idea. The best way, get the government out of the way. Cut taxes, cut regulation, cut the red tape, and then fly, little birdie. Be free. Jump out of the nest and start your own life. Go do your thing. The government should not have a plan in it. It is the parents that are now going to be empty nesters because the private sector will be on its own, doing its own thing without the control of the government.
Political talk trendy.
Oh my God, yes, more.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
The one and only conservative talk show in the South Central Kansas area, really in the state of Kansas. I don't know, there's a few other that just kind of do the thing, but I don't really, we're about the only one growing by leaps and bounds every single day because of you, and we appreciate that very much. Welcome in 316-721-8255, 36 minutes past the hour. Coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, I haven't even teased our guest yet today. Coming up, we have Hawk Mikado from California. He is a millennial, an entrepreneur, business owner, started off many different businesses, and starting of the new party, a third political party, True American Party, for the young generation. We'll talk about what that is, as it may be a growing party that may go into other states. Is it the new and upcoming party? We'll see. I doubt it, but we'll have talk and see what he's all about. Hawk Mikado coming up at 8 o'clock in just a little bit. 316-721-8255. So as we're talking about the job growth, economic growth in the state of Kansas, we're seeing the unemployment rate do very well. We're seeing aviation finally beginning to come back. We're seeing agriculture still struggling because, well, you know, trade wars and trade things is kind of totally out of their control. We're seeing energy begin to come back a little bit, as in like wind energy manufacturing, solar panel manufacturing. It's there. Oil and natural gas still kind of on the fence of whether that's going to be. A lot of that stuff happening here in South Central Kansas, right here in Wichita and the surrounding areas. We see an editorial piece come out of the Wichita Eagle. What was it, over the weekend or on Friday? I don't know. And you may have seen this. It got spread all over social media. But the opinion piece from the editorial board, Wichita, it's time to consider a tax increase. It's past time, actually. Oh, really? Now, remember what we just said was that you have to have the happy balance between federal government tax rates and regulations and state government taxes and regulations in order for a small business to actually flourish. You can't grow when the federal government's telling you that you got to pay all these fines and fees and signing up for this and that and the other and licenses, and the state's doing the same thing, and then they try and tax you every time you try and gain a profit, and then you have the city coming out saying, or maybe you're a business or a homeowner. And they say, you know what, we need to raise the mill levy, which is what they're actually advocating for in here. So I want to read this editorial piece advocating for why it is so essential for us to raise taxes in the city of Wichita. Wichita's $600 million budget was approved this week. Now, by the way, first off, I want to reiterate as well, we talk with Brian Fry, city council member here on the show every week, and we'll talk to him about this opinion piece, and because he's been one that said, yeah, no, we're not going to raise taxes. We don't want to raise taxes. We realize raising taxes is not a very good thing, and it's not what we want to do or what we're going to do. Sorry. Our budget shows that we may be growing about 1% to 2%, which isn't good, but it's not bad. It's at least growing. It's in the positive side. That's a good sign, and that's what they're anticipating for revenue coming in from city taxes and mill levies and everything of that sort to be able to gain profit in order to spend money on projects. Whatever it may be, whether it's the libraries, whether it's the golf courses, which, by the way, just for a side note here, why again does the city need 5 golf courses? I know people around here like to golf, but how many other private golf courses do we have in the area as well? We literally need 5 golf courses. They're talking about selling off McDonald's golf course, and people are panicking, freaking out. Why in the world would we sell that? Really? We have to have our tax money go towards servicing golf courses. How many people actually, raise their hands, actually golf there on a regular, like a weekly basis? Weekly, every couple of days, at least once a week. How many people actually do that? Is it really worth our taxpayer money? Really? I know that we need to have different entertainment things, and I agree with actually having some sort of, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen at the local level with different entertainment value in the city and for the city and for people, the exploration place for the kids and with the baseball fields and with things that are going on. We need those things, but 5 golf courses? Really? Give me a break. I know this is coming from somebody, I may be biased because this is coming from somebody who's never golfed in his life. I've hit the golf ball around an open field a few times, but never actually on a golf course. I would like to try that one sometime. But again, I don't need 5 choices of going to a golf course. I need maybe 1. Let's sell off 4. Let's have 1 city golf course, and the rest of them can be private golf clubs. How about that? Just saying. All right. Now, when it comes to government spending at the city level, there are projects that need to be taken care of, like law enforcement, like firefighters, like libraries, which we've had that discussion as well about the libraries on whether they should be invested in, whether we should upgrade them a little bit to make them a little more retro for the times, because just a big building with lots of books is good. And I don't get me wrong, I love my libraries. I'm a big reader. I am a huge advocate of libraries. Times are changing. And whether we need more computers in there, whether we need more digitized stuff, whether we need more videos in there or DVDs or something, whether we need to upgrade it a little bit, I think that we need to take a look at that. And whether we centralize them, whether we have numerous different branches around. One of the coolest things that I have living in the Edgemore area, over by Townies, over by Central and Woodlawn area, is that we have our Edgemore Library. And we get to walk there, which is really cool. And we get to see all the great books, and we get to rent out a couple of books and check them out and go read them and then return. And the daughter absolutely loves it. I'm not saying that we need to get rid of libraries in any way, shape, or form. We need to look at the best ways to make this cost effective and something that's actually going to benefit the communities the best way that we know how to do so. But they're not even talking about that. If you'd listened to Brian Fry on Tuesdays with our city council meetings, he had mentioned how every single year, and he's the one that ran on the election saying that we need to have proper roads, we need to have proper infrastructure, and we need to have proper maintenance of our highways for the city. That's how he got elected. That's how he ran. That's what he said. The whole argument with this, and we'll read this editorial piece, but they're advocating for the fact that we're cutting highway maintenance budgets for 1 year. That's really what it comes down to. That sums it up right there. That we're cutting back. Now, we've sunk in millions of dollars every single year. We do these projects every single year, and as we're trying to squeeze the budget because, people are tight and we don't necessarily need to be spending lots of money or raising taxes, that, maybe we can hold off on some of the projects for this year. Just some of them. Cut it back a little bit, and then we can reinvest again. We can go at it again. But that's what it comes down to. Here's what they have to say. There are reasons to feel relief over the budget. We should never want library branches to close, especially in lower income areas of the city. City arts, the core of arts in the community, and the importance of the Wichita quality of life. Same for Cowtown and its link to our history. I know that was being discussed as potential being cut out of the budget, at least to some degree. Not necessarily that it was going to go away, but that maybe they had opportunities for more private donations and private fundraising as opposed to city money. Wichita, it's time to consider a tax increase. It's past time, actually, according to the editorial board. From the moment the budget was first proposed in July, city leaders made a point of emphasizing the city's mill levy. The rate by which the property is taxed hasn't been increased in 25 years. Oh, mon Dieu. Is that really a bad thing? I mean, honestly, it hasn't raised in 25 years. That's a good thing. To say we've been successful in keeping our budget somewhat at bay by not getting in crazy amounts of debt, which that's another discussion, by investing in the city, by allowing the city to grow, and we did it without raising your property taxes. But yet, the media, they don't like that. The 25-year figure wasn't followed by exclamation points of pride or emojis of sadness. It's just the fact. For one reason or another, the city's mill levy hasn't been increased. But isn't it time we think about a 1 mil raise? Before some Wichitans plunk anti-tax signs in their lawns or threaten to picket City Hall, let's get the real about what this kind of tax hike actually means. A 2019 budget can't be expected to function properly under 1994 tax rates. Why not? Why not? Why can't you form your budget to stay small like it was in 1994? Just saying. No, time to increase. You ever notice that? They do the same thing with the Constitution. Andy, the Constitution was written in 1776 and ratified, and it was all the way back. It's 300 years old. We have new technology now. We have new things going on now. Doesn't it mean that we need to, make it a living document so we can change it during the times as the technology grows, as the way the people's lifestyles change? We don't need the Second Amendment anymore. We don't need these things. Why? Because it's outdated. It's over 300 years old. Same argument here. Tax rates. They're the same tax rates as 1994. It's time to retroize these guys. It's time to make it all flashy again. It's time to make them newer and bigger and better, meaning your taxes. Nearly everything a city does costs more than a quarter century later, but when a budget works under similar conditions year after year, spending cuts are inevitable. Oh, mon Dieu. Again. So are more public-private partnerships that put control in businesses or nonprofits' hands. Oh, mon Dieu. They say it like it's a bad thing. This may cost the city less, but contains the risk of services that are not the same quality. Yeah, it's actually better quality because it's in the hands of the private sector. A 1 mil increase would cost property owners $11.50 annually for every $100,000 of appraised value of their home. The city budget would gain $3.5 to $4 million. This is the same argument they used in Derby during the budget debate. Remember? Now, remember, you have different ways to raise the mill levy. You could do it by the city, or you could do it by the school boards and the school district. Derby just did that with the school district. It's only $10 per $100,000 on your home. It's like a pizza. You got a pizza, and it's great, and then there you go. You have, it's just right there. It's just sacrificing one pizza a year. It's not that much. And then, of course, then the city comes out and does the same thing. It's only a pizza. And then you have, by the way, the other three bonds that are out there as well for the school, for whatever else, their new building or their AstroTurf for their practice football field or whatever else they want to do. It's only 3 pizzas that you have on your home. And then the city's going to put one on there as well and increase it from whatever it is right now. They never look at what's already there. They just look at what the increase will be. It's not that much. It's not going to be significant. You're not going to remember it. And then they do another one. And then they do another one. and then they do another one, and then they do another one. It's only a little bit more. It doesn't really matter. Pretty soon, you're looking at it and you're saying, wait a second, where'd all this coming from? I'm spending up the you-know-what in order to pay for my property taxes, and then the education system's still not any better, and the city's still spending money, and they're out of money, and they're asking for more money because the government never is satisfied with the amount of revenue that comes in. The same argument over, and it's only $11.50 per $100,000 of your home. Under a healthier budget, all those quality of life items would remain funded, but so would street maintenance. Road improvements are taking $1 million hit after adding funding first proposed by City Manager Robert Layton in 2019. And it's not as if the City Council can raise the mill levy itself. State law mandates mill levies may only be raised by city governing bodies for narrow purposes, such as public safety improvements. So there's their little loophole. We can do that to say that we need to raise it for the highway maintenance, because how dare that we cut it by $1 million. We're spending plus over $10 million on highway maintenance, but we're cutting it back a million. How dare you? We need to raise taxes, and we probably should do it through our property tax because it's not that much, and people forget all about it, and then we can do it again next year. Oh, the trends, the typical proposals, and we should have guessed that something like this was going to happen. But we haven't even approved it officially yet, and I guess we did maybe last week at the city council meeting. But they're upset now. How dare we cut it by $1 million, and therefore we probably need to raise property taxes. Welcome again to the left-wing progressive media. This is The Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
I do find it ironic when people still chuckle and laugh and are shocked when a little bit left-leaning media source comes out and advocates for tax increases. And then, where'd that come from? Well, it must be pretty mainstream. I guess we could do that. Okay. This portion of The Voice Reason brought to you by the AARP. Whether it's the Fraud Watch Network, the Retirement Calculator, getting involved in the community, going out and just enjoying being safe when it comes to all the scams that are out there, which is a very scary thing. Check them out, aarp.org/KS for the state of Kansas. It is a Monday, and Marin Turner is back with us here on the line. Good morning, Marin. How are you today?
Good morning. How are you?
I am living the dream. It is. It feels a little bit more fall-y today. I wonder if it's going to stick.
Well, I don't know. It is a little bit more chilly, and I like fall, but I don't want it to come too soon.
Yeah. Let's enjoy a little bit more of it. But that 90-degree weather, I know that's gotten pretty old for a lot of individuals pretty quickly. So we'll see where that ends up going. So what's going on with the AARP? I know you guys are actually getting ready for your movies for grown-ups here shortly, isn't it?
Yes, we are. This particular Movies for Grown-Ups is completely sold out, but it's not too early to go online and sign up for our Movies for Grown-Ups on September 27th, and we hope people will do that.
Very good. Very good. It is really good to hear that it is sold out, because that means people are actually out and I think enjoying getting out of the house a little bit, spending time with their parents and grandparents, just having fun, and this is a great way to do that.
Yes, it is. It's a good way to just meet new people and like you said, just go out and relax. So, again, we hope people will come out and see this one. We'll be showing, it's not too early, we'll be showing Won't You Be My Neighbor? So
Very
that
nice.
should be a good one. We also have several other things coming up that we want people to know about. One is that we've launched a multifaceted voter education campaign. The goal of that is to make sure that we get as many people that are 50 plus out to the polls and voting this year and being very informed. And if you want to know more about that, you can log on to www.aarp.org/vote. You'll see us around town with our booths, and you may get a letter in the mail asking you to sign the pledge to be the difference. So we want people to get out to vote. We also want people to know about a really fun event coming up at the Grandparents Park in Wichita on the 20th of September. We'll have a food truck there, and people can just come out and sample food from 3 different vendors. That's going to be from 5 to 7. You need to register, though, but it's a free event, and we hope people will come out to that. I also want to make sure people know that in addition to doing things around the city in terms of community service, we have a signature event every year. It's our Day of Service. It's in honor of everything that happened on 9/11. And so this year we're going to be working at the Kansas Food Bank. We'd welcome anybody that'd like to join us on September 11th. I also want to make sure people know about an event coming up at the Hughes Metroplex at the Lowe Auditorium on October the 2nd. We will be featuring Frank Abagnale. If you saw the movie Catch Me If You Can, then you know a little bit about Frank's life. He'll be here to talk to us about how to protect ourselves from fraud. And so that's a really big event. It's free. It's open to all ages from 6:30 to 8 o'clock p.m. You don't have to be a member. Just come on out.
I think it's going to be a great event, and I'm glad you mentioned that. You've teased it a little bit before, but a great way to understand a little bit of the scams because, I mean, being involved in that, I mean, he can know the industry inside and out. And you guys are really busy here with a lot of these events coming up over the next month or so, from the movies for grown-ups to the scam thing to just going out in the park and having fun. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening right now. This is the best time of year for it.
Yes, there's a lot of stuff going on, and I can't sign off without saying again a very big thank you to Senator Pat Roberts for his farm bill that has provisions in it that protect the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, known as SNAP. So many Kansans depend on that for food security, and so we just want to thank Senator Pat Roberts. We are very busy, as you said, and I hope people will log on to find out more about what we're doing at www.aarp.org or call us at 866-448-3619.
I love it, Marin Turner, AARP. Appreciate it very much. Have a great week. We'll chat with you again next Monday. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
Is your home more than 15 years old? With the warmer weather, have you noticed ants or insects in your house? It could be from moisture behind your siding causing rot.
It's time for Reason.
They're delusional. The blinders are on. I don't know if it's the higher education. I don't know whether it's the Common Core education. I don't know whether it's just been brainwashing for years and years and years. But when you lay out blatant facts to them, they refuse to listen. They refuse to acknowledge. There's so much opportunity to where if we just at least had a discussion and they opened their ears for a slight minute, then maybe they'd have a different perspective.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
The day just keeps getting better and better and better. That's the way we at least try to go here on the show. Welcome into The Voice of Reason, hour number 3. The Voice of Reason broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on TV as well. Why you want to look at this ugly mug, not quite sure, but on KGPT TV, channel 2610 as well. We are on Facebook Live, facebook.com/1480KQAM. Welcome into the show on a Monday. Hawk Mikado, not able to join us right now. We'll get him on the show at a later time, so it is open lines to you, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. We do have, it's okay, because we have a lot to talk about today and a lot to get to. He is, just not today because he's not on the show, but a young millennial. He is a business owner, entrepreneur, and the starting of the new third-party True American Party is trying to rally the young generation. There's this fascination, and we've talked about it at great length on the show before, this fascination about stepping away from the two parties and trying to go third party, trying to go independent. You know, the big move with the independent vote. I'm independent. Okay, what does that mean? What do you believe in? Well, I believe in a little bit of both sides. Okay, what does that mean? What does that mean? I don't quite understand what that actually means sometimes. The independent candidate for the governor's race, Greg Orman, is officially on the ballot for November. He submitted his signatures for the petition, as independents have to do, get a certain number of signatures, get the petition, get it sent in. He got that. It is cleared. It is official. He is on the ballot. I don't know about the other independent or two independent candidates. Not quite sure if they've been able to make it, maybe not, but it's really going to come down to this three-way race. potentially the Libertarian candidate on there as well, but we can write that one out. He's going to get 2% of the vote, and then they can feel really proud and excited that they did something productive. So, but it's going to come down to a three-party race. And Greg Orman is officially on the ballot as the independent. Those signatures were accepted. I know the Democrats were a little panicky trying to remove some of those signatures, trying to get him off of that ballot because they know that he's going to take away many votes from the Democratic side. Laura Kelly being a little bit on the fringe, not having a really pro-business plan at all on the campaign trail. We talked about that last hour, is the differences between the three candidates. Chris Kobach says cut taxes, get the government out of business, and get the government off the regulation backs, get the regulations off the back of the businesses. Greg Orman says let's something semi-similar, saying let's do a pro-business initiative with the platform. And then Laura Kelly says let's just raise taxes and spend on education, and then you can have a well-educated youth to be able to go into the workforce. That's the plan. It's not the most in-depth plan, but it works, I guess. Good luck with her. So it's really going to come down almost to a two-way race, and not the two that you would think, but it would really come down to a Chris Kobach, Greg Orman type of square-off in the general election. The general election is already building up hype, not just in the state of Kansas, but nationwide, because, of course, you've been hearing the news this morning that Steve Bannon with Breitbart.com, former advisor of President Trump, and individual where they didn't really necessarily leave on good terms, is coming out saying that potentially Republicans could lose 35 to 40 House seats in the House of Representatives. I don't see that being the case. Now, we've been saying I don't see a blue wave happening. The Democrats are excited, thinking they see a blue wave happening. I don't know where he's coming with his information here, although the only thing I can think of is that he's just generating the fire to be lit under Republicans just to turn out and vote. That's really all it is. And that's the only thing. Maybe I'm seeing this wrong, but that's the only way that I actually anticipate seeing a move by someone like Steve Bannon coming out saying, the Republicans, if the vote was done right now, we'd lose 35 to 40 seats. We'd be done. We'd be over. The Democrats are going to win. They're going to create this impeachment. Then you got to step back and think a second. Wait a second. I don't see it happening. Every special election so far, Republicans have won over Democrats. The voter turnout, at least here in Kansas, has been astronomical. We turned out 2-1, even in early voting, Republicans over Democrats. We have a vast change within the Republican Party, and we're really excited to go into a general election. I don't see the big blue wave actually happening. We could actually potentially take 5 to 6 seats in our state house away from Democrats and give them to Republicans. But now we see this national movement of potentially 35 to 40 seats. You can't look at this midterm and you can't run it out as a traditional Republican playbook. If you do that, you're going to get smoked, according to Steve Bannon. This is not about persuasion. It's too late to persuade anybody. We're 90 days away from this election. This is all about the turnout and what I call the base plus. Now, here's the kicker. Steve Bannon is creating a group called Citizens of the American Republic that tries to get people to go out and vote and support Trump to stop the impeachment process. Now, I know they left on bad terms, and some individuals are like, well, you know what? It may not. It's really maybe he's just trying to scare because he doesn't like Donald Trump anymore. Not the case at all. He's actually trying to stop the impeachment of President Donald Trump, trying to get people to go to the polls to support President Trump as the Citizens of the American Republic is his latest organization that he's creating. So my thought is, and it's a good thought to some degree, you don't want to discourage people. You want to encourage them. And sometimes you can do it by the fire and brimstone. Donald Trump will be impeached with a 35 to 40 seat loss by Republicans to Democrats, and they will impeach him, and we cannot allow that to happen. That happens in politics, the scare tactic. It happens quite a bit. I'm more of the flavor of let's encourage of saying, hey, we have really cool things happening. Let's not allow that to change. Let's show up and actually be excited to show up, not based out of fear. Fear politics works at times, and it's necessary sometimes. I don't think we need to do that right now. Right now, we don't need to go negative. We can stay positive because there are way too many positive things happening. I've mentioned this for the third time now this show. According to the Associated Press, that by Wednesday, we'll have broken the record for the longest bull market in the U.S. history. Meaning the bull market going up, markets going up. We've broken records. If we stay on this path till Wednesday, it would be the longest trek in U.S. history of having a bullish market. Unemployment rate's low, 50-year low for millennials and the young generation. We have a record number unemployment rate for the African-American community, the lowest in the U.S. history. We have crazy things going on. We have manufacturing plants reopening up in the country. We have tax rates that are low right now, at least at the federal level-ish. Now we need to do those at the state level-ish. And we have the arguments going on with North Korea, with potentially denuclearization, with them working with South Korea. Things are happening there. We moved our embassy to Jerusalem, the thing that we've been saying that we're going to do for a really long time. We began to reverse Obamacare, and we got rid of the individual mandate. At least we're on the right track. All we have to do is run a positive campaign, and we will win. All we have to do is run a positive campaign. This 35 to 40 seats, I don't see it. I just don't see it unless it's the ploy to get people energized to go out and vote. And it works at times, but sometimes you take it overboard. Now, Steve Bannon, a solid conservative, he's the owner of Breitbart.com, and he's starting up his Citizens of the American Republic. That's the only thing that I can think of why we'd be losing 35 to 40 seats, is that we're not really, but he's starting his organization. He wants engagement, and he wants people to turn out. That's it. But we have an opportunity to run a very positive campaign. It just depends on who's going to turn out. Now, the guest that we were going to have, and we'll get him back on the show and get him rescheduled, but talked about a third-party movement with the True American Party in California that's based by millennials and the millennial generation turnout. Now, the millennials have a very low voter turnout historically over the last couple of years. Very, very low. Since we've actually, because I'm part of that generation, I'm a millennial, since we become of age, I've voted every single year, but there are many that don't because they care more about the Kim Kardashian tweet that happened and what Caitlyn Jenner's doing as opposed to what our government's doing. When you see tweets by saying, oh, look, there's been more Super Bowls than presidents, I didn't realize that football's been going on longer than the country, here's your sign. And yes, that is a real tweet. It's a couple years old, but yes, that's a real tweet. We need to get the voter engagement and voter turnout. It's just how we appeal. Is it the emotional argument? Is it the logistics argument? The factoid argument? Is it the scare tactic argument? There's different ways that we can approach this. I, for one, like to get you engaged by the positive emotion. This would be a negative emotion. Donald Trump will be impeached. And they're right. If we end up losing the House, they will start the impeachment process with a Democrat majority. I don't think that's a good platform to run on as a campaign, but you can definitely try that as a Democrat. I want to get into office and take away the Republican seat so we can reverse all the tax cuts. We can actually remove our embassy from Jerusalem. We can get back Obamacare that failed and that raised the premiums and deductibles for everybody. And oh, by the way, we're going to impeach the President of the United States. That may work with a fringe base. It's not going to work with a whole lot of other people. It's really not. You can try it, but it's not going to work, except for the base. Anybody that's on the fence, they're going to listen to that and be like, that's a little extreme. Just a little bit too much. Their base is going to love it. But the whole point of an election is trying to appeal to the ones that are on that fence, that wishy-washy, the moderates, the independents, the ones that aren't quite sure what to do. And when you hear either, oh, great things are happening, let's maintain the traction of what we're doing right now, because the media may tell you it's all bad, but I have more money in my paycheck when I come home. That's a good sign. As opposed to the other side with the fire and brimstone, we will impeach, we hate everybody in authority, and we will toss them out, tarred and feathered. Tell me, unless you're part of that fringe base, how you will support a movement like that. I'm not. You wouldn't. And the majority of common sensical, rational people would not as well. 316-721-8255. Midterms coming up. The general election in November. We are 90 days out. Do you think that we could lose 35 to 40 seats? I don't see it. I don't anticipate it. I could be wrong, though. I'm not an expert. Let's go to the phones. Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, it's John the Libertarian.
John the Libertarian, what's happening, sir?
Well, not a whole lot, man. I know you have the guest lined up, the third party. I'm not familiar with what their platform is, but coming from a third party myself, you talked about the election all last week and people voting for third party or unaffiliated or independent. Have you ever heard of ranked choice voting? Have you talked about that on your show?
Yeah, I've talked a little bit about it, not a whole lot extensively.
I thought Bob Weeks put out a great article last week about it, and it really would work for somebody like me or just people in general that want to vote for somebody rather than against somebody. A lot of people in the 2016 election voted against Hillary rather than, for Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And in this election, Bob Weeks actually said that Collier could have been the governor candidate had we had the ranked choice voting, because he and I can't remember the third guy were very similar in platform, and so people would have voted for Collier first, the other guy second, and then that could have came down to the general. So I think it's a great way to go, because I'd love to vote for my candidate that I know I can't win, but in a close race like the one coming up for governor, I'd like to know that my second vote is going towards the guy that I kind of agree with.
That is true. Now, you're right, and we're actually going to get Bob Weeks on in the next week or so to talk a little bit about that, because I did read that article, and I thought it was very interesting. I'm personally, I can see where it's coming from, but, I don't know. I just don't... It's a tricky way to vote, and is someone that, as you mentioned, vote for somebody that more closely aligns with you as opposed to voting against somebody else. Does that really fall, to me, that falls under the category of when you vote third party, doesn't that go against what you're voting for? If you know they're not going to win, then vote for someone that you somewhat closely align with and someone that you don't align with at all, and vote for someone within that party that has a better chance of winning. Doesn't that kind of fall into the same category?
Well, I guess if you look at it from that perspective, but the other way to look at it is, this could open it up to third parties. It could open it up to people that aren't just the two-party system, which, your guest that was going to be on, I'm sure, would have talked to. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to the general, it's going to cut it down to those two. And one thing that we haven't had in a long time is majority wins. The presidential race, it's always 40-something%. The winner takes it. In the gubernatorial race that we just had, it was, I think they were tied at 41% or 42%. When you have the ranked choice voting, it would then come to, you'll always have a majority selecting the winner. And that's something we haven't had for a while.
Sure. And that could be, I think there's some positives and some negatives in that sense as well. There could be good and bad. If we don't have a majority, does that mean the majority of the people didn't support that candidate? Maybe. So when there's a lot of different people on the ballot, then we're not going to see something like a majority all the time. So I think that could show a negative in the sense that the majority maybe didn't support that candidate. At the same time, I think that could be a positive as well, that, we had some great candidates on there, and the victor, just who had the higher number, regardless of whether that was a majority of 50% or not, showed that it was a hotly contested race, and they came out victorious as well. But there were plenty of different options for voters to go up and show up for, and I don't know. I see the pros and cons there.
Sure. There's pros and cons with any type of proposal like this. I'll leave you with this thought too, though. In that presidential primary, when Trump won, there were, I think, 15 other candidates that were all much more closely aligned, and then Trump was kind of that outlier.
Sure.
And many people say he won because of that. And so if you had the ranked choice voting, I would submit that we may have a Ted Cruz in office rather than Donald Trump, because people voting for him would not have put Donald Trump as their second choice. They would have put one of the other more conservative-leaning candidates.
I think it would have changed a lot of elections. I would have gone back to the 2008 election as well, where you had the conservatives torn between Mitt Romney and Mike Huckabee, and then you had the moderates that united behind John McCain, and we got that one. That was the worst choice out of any of the candidates that we could have had. Right. So you're right. I think it would have changed if we would go towards that based voting style. Then we could we'd probably see a lot of different candidates in many different races. John the Libertarian, appreciate the call, my friend. We got to take a break here, but some interesting points, and I'm glad you brought it up because I do want to get Bob Weeks on the show and chat a little bit about that style. He did write that piece, and we'll try and read a little bit of it on the air and have him elaborate a little bit more. But could that change the outcome of some of these elections? Potentially. Whether it's good or not, that's up for us to decide. We'll get into that a little bit when we come back. So, got some more calls on the line. Don't go anywhere. We'll get to you as soon as we come back. 24 minutes past the hour on a Monday. This is The Voice of Reason.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
All right, bottom of the hour news coming up in just a second here. Went a little long in that last segment. That's all right. Appreciate the phone calls. That ranked-based election, I want to talk about that some when we come back. Honestly, it's got its pros and cons. I'd be more in favor of not doing something like that. We'll talk about why when we come back. Plus, we got some calls on the line. Don't go anywhere. We'll get to you. So we'll start off with you as soon as we come back after bottom of the hour. This is The Voice of Reason. It is a Monday. Let's have a little fun. Getting ready for midterm elections, baby. This is The Voice of Reason.
Spreading the love on a daily basis.
And I will always love you.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
It gets better and better, doesn't it? Every single time that you hear it. Welcome into The Voice of Reason. Wrapping up the program today, 36 minutes past the hour. It is a Monday. It is The Voice of Reason. I am Andy Hoosier, and you are just awesome. Let's put it that way. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. So real quickly, this ranked-based voting, in case you're not aware, it is really it's pretty much like it's the ultimate compromise, what it is, which is why I find it really fascinating of individuals maybe of the libertarian or the independent side to compromise for the person that they agree with slimly as opposed to full-heartedly. And Bob Weeks did a great piece. And, we love Bob Weeks. He's a great guy. We've been on his show quite a few times. He's come on this show. We'll get him on the show to talk a little bit more about this article that he posted end of last week. But what it really says was under a ranked-based voting system is rank your candidates, how you agree with them more so or not. I mean, in how they compare to each other. Chris Kobach played the for example, for the Republican primary governorship, Chris Kobach comes out and says that I'm the conservative and everybody else is not as conservative. And that was his argument. Jeff Collier tried to play I'm conservative, but I kind of appeal to everybody, and he tried to play the very wide umbrella. Jim Barnett came out and said, I'm kind of the moderate candidate here. I want to spend some more money on different programs at the state level. I want to expand Medicaid. I want to do these things. And that was really the mindset of many of these. And Ken Seltzer played the conservative, but not as loud of a firebrand. And talking about just the three, Chris Kobach, Jeff Collier, Jim Barnett. Obviously, Jim Barnett didn't have as much money. Jim Barnett didn't have as much support. And under the ranked-based system that Bob Weeks had talked about, that under that system, the Jim Barnett supporters could have said potentially or should have been like, hey, you know what? I know Jim's not going to win. I know he doesn't have a chance. Now between the two, which other candidate, Jeff Collier, Chris Kobach, falls more in line with Jim Barnett's views? And that would be a Jeff Collier. Maybe not as much as we would like, but, more so than what Chris Kobach would be. So I would fall in line with him. And if those votes went to Jeff Collier, then he would have won the nomination. And if you listen to the campaign tactics and the campaign ads over the last week or two before the election, that was the argument that Jeff Collier made. You saw the posts on social media with Jim Barnett saying, hey, a vote for Jim Barnett is a vote for Chris Kobach. And that's the argument that they use, is that we need to unite behind Jeff Collier. We need to be able to move forward this way, because if not, then it's going to be a Chris Kobach victory because we're too divided in that sense. I mean, this is the way that politics has been played for a long time. And I use the example of, you're right, I mean, Donald Trump was not the first choice for a lot of individuals, myself included, but yet there were split between, 12 different Republican candidates at the time. Back in 2008, The conservatives were torn between Mitt Romney and Mike Huckabee. Which one's going to be more conservative? Which neither one of them were as conservative. I didn't really care for either one of them, but that's the choices that we had. I personally favored Mitt Romney over Mike Huckabee because Huckabee was actually lower in the polls, but yet he stayed in the race because he didn't like Mitt Romney. So I kind of had a grudge against him, and I supported Mitt Romney at the time. But guess what? We got John McCain that came up, because the moderates kind of went behind him because they didn't. So the rank-based voting is good to a degree because, well, you're trying to find the candidate that best resembles your views, which is a good idea. But in a primary, I'm not a fan of that. I am really kind of in the general election because voting third party, voting independent, voting libertarian, you can feel good about your candidate. But again, are they going to win? Do they have the best chance? No. So you compromise to find the person that you more closely align with to support them to be able to defeat the other person. What we're really saying now is that in a primary race, let's go to the lesser of two evils, to compromise, to spite somebody else in protest of somebody else, as opposed to who you actually support. I support that in the general election, not in a primary election. I think the primary election, we should have as many candidates as we can have. I think in the primary race, we should have as many plethora of ideas as we can possibly have. That's where we spar out our differences in the party. That's where we spar out what we're going to believe in. That's what we're going to spar. And to me, it really doesn't matter, because then going into the general election, the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, the whatever party should be united under its candidate as a party. So let's have the sparring. Let's maybe not get the 50% plus majority as the primary race because we had 6-7 different candidates in there. That's okay. But regardless of whatever that was, regardless of the spatting that we had during the primary race, let's unite under the general election, go as a party, as one singular movement, and then we can beat whatever party's out there. And I'm really kind of shocked, John the Libertarian, if you want to call back in and talk about this again, I'm really kind of shocked that you'd be in support of something like that as a voter of a third party, because this really advocates for it. Let's limit the number of people that have a chance of actually winning. Let's compromise who we're going to support because we know that person may or may not win, and let's compromise that to vote for our next favorite person, or the second person in line, or the third person in line, in order to beat someone else because they more closely align with us. That's really the compromising of the values, isn't it? That's really what it comes down to. And I'm for that in the general election, because then we recognize that a Republican or a Democrat's going to win. A Libertarian candidate will not win. An independent, very, very few of them have actually won nationwide, and you really don't have a chance of winning. It's not going to happen. It's a Republican or a Democrat. Now, this one's a little bit different with our governor's race because no one knows who Laura Kelly is, and she only appeals to a few of the fringe, and Greg Orman is a moderate left-leaning candidate, where many Democrats have supported him for a long time in the past, which, by the way, Greg Orman will be on the show on Wednesday, and I am looking forward to chatting with him, talking about his take on the Republican primary going into the general and his business initiative that he came out with. But predominantly, I'm not saying bad or indifferent here, I'm just saying Greg Orman predominantly has been on the left side of the aisle, to where Democrats have pushed out their candidates to embrace him as kind of the Democrat supporter as an independent. He's been on that left side of the aisle predominantly throughout his political career running for offices. So as the Republican Party, we unite, regardless of whatever candidate came out with in the end. If it was Jim Barnett and the candidate, I would have voted for Jim Barnett. If it was Jeff Collier, I would have voted for Jeff Collier. If it was Ken Seltzer, I would have voted for Ken Seltzer as a Republican, because we unite as the Republican Party for a ranked-based that really silences a lot of the voices within the party that want to run in a primary. But the general election, we kind of do have that, and I do support that in the general, just not in the primary race. Your thoughts on that? 316-721-8255. Let's go to the line, to your line at number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, Andy. This is Helen.
Helen, how are you?
I'm doing just great. Well, I agree that we need to, it's in the primary, it's great to have multiple choices because of everybody just putting us up to just maybe one choice. And who says that just because you are registered as a Republican that you're not a independent thinker? I'm still independent.
It's a great point. I mean, you're a registered Republican because you believe in the values that the Republican Party upholds, but that doesn't mean that you're not an independent thinker, that you don't have your own ideas, which is why the umbrella of the Republican Party is really, really wide. I mean, for example, and if we want to talk about this rank-based system, that's why Chris Kobach and Wink Hartman ended up partnering up for the governor and lieutenant governor's race, because they recognized that they were tearing each other apart, and that they would have probably lost to another one of the candidates because the conservatives were torn between Wink Hartman and Chris Kobach. So instead of fighting each other in the primary for the governorship, they partnered up to say, let's band together and unite, and it ended up working very well, I think, for them. So you're right, but that doesn't mean that we're not independent thinkers just because we actually associate with a certain party, and I'd say the same for Democrats to some degree as well.
I agree, and the candidate that I agree with the most is whoever agrees with God the most.
Sure.
That the Holy Bible and the Lord God and His standards, high moral standards, are my touchstone, and how I grade a candidate, and the one that comes closest to agreeing with the Lord God, that's the one I'm going to agree with.
Sure, and I mean that's your platform of whatever candidate stands on that platform. Helen, I appreciate it. I mean, everybody's got theirs, whether it's social issues, whether it's economic issues, whether it's business growth, whether it's Obamacare, whether it's guns, or whether it's even religious, of what candidate stands on the platform, the special item, the special interest that you have as a voter. And that's yours, and I appreciate that very much, Helen. You're absolutely right. I mean, we are independent thinkers. Now, the Democrats, coming from the outside looking in, I would say that they have a little bit less of a free-thinking mentality, because they get their marching orders, they get told, and then you can see that even some individuals that have different views in the Democratic Party kind of get shunned. But then again, some of that's starting to happen within the Republican side as well. Talk to Ted Cruz or Mike Lee and see how much the establishment Republicans have tried to run them out of the party. Talk to Rand Paul and see how many times the establishment Republicans have tried to run him out of the party because he stands on a platform and disagrees with the party in many senses. But he stays a Republican because he understands that that's the loudest voice that he can have, and that Republicanism predominantly still supports conservative values, traditional values. That's a great point. Let's go to lines here. Again, line number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
Sue.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Hey, living the dream every day.
Good. Well, as far as primaries go, the first thing we need to do is get our primaries cleaned up and stop this nonsense of affiliating at the polling place. That's got to stop.
Exactly.
As far as what you're talking about, apparently with what Bob Weeks was writing, and I didn't see it, he sounds more like he's advocating for a caucus type of thing, which, coming from being a precinct committee person for a long, long time, that's kind of how we do it. Everybody gets up and they make their case for why they should be elected to whatever part of the Sedgwick County leadership, and then everybody votes on them. Mm-hmm. And I'm not really a big fan of that as far as extrapolating that out, because then you have a situation where the individual doesn't really get a say. They have representatives that will then go caucus for them. So I'm not a big fan of the caucus. And for me, one of the other big issues is that what we need to be doing is getting our party platform in some kind of good shape, and then looking at our candidates in light of the platform. Mm-hmm. Because part of what's happened to the Republican Party over the course of my adult life is that you have people all over the spectrum, most of which don't stand up for the party platform, and yet they're being allowed by the party to run as a representative of that party,
sure,
which makes no sense to me. So we need to be ensuring that, yes, we have a lot of people to choose from. That's always a good thing. But we need to be also looking at who actually says they're going to stand up for the party platform. Because if you don't agree with the platform, generally you wouldn't associate with that party. So why in the world would you want to elect someone who is totally against whatever the values are in the platform to go represent you?
Couldn't have said it better myself. You're absolutely right. I mean, when we talk about the platform, and luckily the Republican Party in the state, I believe, is starting to do to some degree like that. Now, they like, really anybody that wants to associate with the party being there because of the number of unaffiliated voters, I think, personally, I think is the reasoning for it in the state of Kansas here. But you're right, when we actually set a solid platform, and then not only that, but they've talked about doing like a litmus test to where the elected officials do the test, and then we put it public for them to say, all right, this is the views that I have. If it differs from the Republican Party, now you know about it, constituent/voter, and you can do what you need to do about it appropriately going into the voting booth for the primaries later on. Or if you do align with it, is it the same as what you said on the litmus test to tell the voters what you support, as opposed to what your voting record has been when things actually come to your table? Then we can start holding them accountable for their actions.
And you're right. That's what needs to happen. And I think if we start doing those things, we will have far fewer unaffiliated voters. Mm-hmm. Because the reason people are unaffiliated is because they're, sort of standoffish about the fact that you can't really trust anybody. You don't really know who's going to live up to what they say they're going to do. All of those things, and it makes people not want to solidly align with one side or the other. They want to wishy-wash around and wait to see who's available and then vote based on who's available, or vote to try to spoil somebody and keep them out, or whatever the case may be, or get the guy in that they think they can beat. All right. Those things, and it's just nonsensical. And I'm with Helen. Yes, if you're somebody that's a faith person, which I am also, that needs to come first and foremost. But we need to get our party platform in order. We need to start finding a way to hold the people that are representing the party to the platform so that we can have some kind of assurance that when we vote for them in, that we're not going to have a nightmare going on.
I completely agree. Sue, I love that call today right there, really. I mean, that's excellent points. Now, when it comes to I will say one thing. When it comes to the caucuses, there's different types of caucuses that you can do as well. And I like caucuses personally. I like having, not necessarily even getting rid of your vote, because there's different ways. You can vote in a caucus as well. If you remember the presidential caucus that we had in the state in 2016, they came to Wichita. Ted Cruz came, and a representative it was Mike Pompeo that spoke in regards to Marco Rubio at the time. Donald Trump came. We had the big caucus, and then we got to vote, and then it was the majority. Now, there's different ways that you can caucus as well. You can actually do it like you mentioned with the representative voting for you, which, you don't necessarily have as much of a hands-on. You vote for the representative. The representative then represents a certain number of people, and I think that's the way Colorado needs to go with the way that they have it, because theirs is completely messed up. And that would be, I think, the best fix for Colorado. Kansas, we have our caucuses to where, like we did in 2016, where you can actually vote for the candidate. Now, what Bob's even talking about is that what we do is after the first round of voting, then whoever doesn't have a 50 plus one majority, then we eliminate the bottom one or bottom two, and then do another round with the caucus, and everybody votes again. And then you continue to go on until you have it narrowed down to two people, or you figure out who's going to get a 50 plus one majority. And you can do it that way as well. And maybe that's the way we go, to where we start narrowing it down a little bit more. All right, you know what? We had three different candidates here. It was Jeff Collier and Chris Kobach and Jim Barnett. Ken Seltzer, kind of struggled a little bit, so we eliminate Ken Seltzer. We do it again. We didn't do it. Let's eliminate Jim Barnett. Now it's down to the two. Where are we going to go from here and get a 50 plus one majority? A little bit longer process. We probably would have needed another month to go out in order to make this happen, but it's a possibility. It's an option for us to have. And those styles are very interesting, but you're right. The major issues that we've been harping on, and you said it elegantly and perfectly, is number one, let's actually get rid of people registering for the party the day of, because who knows what their intentions actually are, what we tried to advocate for last week. Number two is being able to actually hold our Republican or Democratic candidates accountable based on their voting record and what they believe in under the umbrella of the party's platform. The party platform is the whole reason you and I decide to want to register for a party. Why would we want someone advocating for the Republican platform if we're a member of the Republican Party just because they want to be in office? To me, that doesn't make any sense. Those two we address, then we can address the process of how it's actually done, which I think is minimal, but yet still important. I love talking about that. Sue, appreciate the call very much. So got to take a break, wrap up the show today. This is The Voice of Reason.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
I may be a dork, but I actually enjoy understanding and looking at the processes of how elections are actually done. if you remember, there's, as we mentioned, numerous different ways to caucus. The presidential caucus, we did have a majority vote in order to have our votes to the Electoral College go towards, well, Electoral College is in the primaries, go towards, and we went towards Ted Cruz in a very large margin here in the state of Kansas. But last year during the special election during the 4th congressional seat after Mike Pompeo stepped away, if you remember, the closed caucus that we had for the 4th district was that we had the representatives do the caucusing, and we did that process to where if we didn't have the 50+1 majority, then they narrowed it down, eliminated a couple of individuals, and then they did the revote again with those representatives to get that 50+1. Ron Estes ended up winning that process, and that was a closed caucus. So different processes, different ways to do things. I love it, and I think we need to seriously look at those for our local statewide races in the state of Kansas during our primary process. Sorry we didn't get to all the phone calls. Had a few waiting online. We'll get to you tomorrow. Call back tomorrow. We got a lot more to discuss on a Tuesday. This is The Voice of Reason. Everybody enjoy your Monday morning.